Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Coffee with Convery, your go-to podcast for real talk, bold ideas, and human-first career stories that inspire the next generation of talent. Today's episode is going to blow your mind, literally. Joining me is someone who's made it his mission to help people understand how we think, how we decide, and how we unlearn biases in the workplace and beyond. He's a social scientist, a trainer, a speaker, a former EMT, and an all around force for good. He's facilitated workshops for over 60,000 people around the globe, hosted one of the most thought provoking radio shows on work culture, and is currently studying cognitive neuroscience at George Mason University, all while leading Electric Cow, his company that delivers science backed workshops to make workplaces more inclusive, equitable, and psychologically safe. But before all that, before the research, before the radio waves and the radical change work, he and I actually walked the same halls at the University of Hartford. So this conversation is not just exciting for me as a host, but it's also personal. Lorne Epstein, welcome to the Coffee with Convery. So good to have you here.
Thank you so much, Brian. I really appreciate it. And for the folks who are listening, Brian and I went to University of Hartford together way back when, 30
We,
years, 40 years.
yeah, oh my God. I think
Yeah,
I think you're right. I think you're right. So maybe we'll start with a couple rapid fire questions and then we'll jump right into your story. I think you got so many cool things to share with the audience.
you bet.
What is your superpower?
Innovator.
Innovator. What was your
Yeah,
favorite subject in high school?
science.
Science. Okay, we all start somewhere. We all start doing our very first job. What was your very first job?
I was 15. I had to get working papers, and I worked in like one of the first all you can like eat shrimp salad bar restaurants in
Huh.
Kings Plaza Shopping Center in Brooklyn called Cookies.
Okay,
And I never got lunch breaks. I worked like 10-hour days. I did it for a couple of months and I left.
there you go. Did you get a lot of shrimp?
No, I didn't eat anything. I
Oh,
remember
you didn't
once,
even
like
like
I
even
no,
pick off the bar? Nothing?
no.
Oh my God.
I didn't know that I was supposed to get lunch breaks, so I didn't eat. I remember one time there was an extra meal that the chef had. I said, "Can you hold it for me?" And then, like by the end of the shift, it was gone. Like yeah, and I probably could have brought a lawsuit. Like
So
you can't work a
yeah,
15-year-old
you're
kid
supposed
all
to have
day.
like at least a half an hour break to eat, like, right?
Yeah,
It's
no,
like
I didn't have that.
mandated. Nice, nice. All right, if you had to describe yourself in one word, what would it be?
Uh, Connector. I would say connector.
I like
I
that.
like to connect people
That's awesome.
habitually.
I love that. I love that.
Yes, I always find what people need, and I'm always thinking about how to connect folks. So if you're in my space, people know that you'll probably, if you need something, I'll probably find someone. Like my favorite thing to say is that one word, I got a guy.
I got a guy. I love that. I love that. Yeah, you got a guy for that. All right. Well, let's jump in. Let's start where it all began, Hartford. We both launched our journeys there. What do you remember most about your time at University of Hartford, and how did it shape the path you've taken?
I think there were some really good experiences. One of my teachers, Dr. Charles Kennedy, I took like every class he offered because I got that he cared about students. And that's what I was kind of looking for. I was looking for a mentor who I knew cared about me and wasn't just kind of turning the crank. And he was so smart that I just remember a lot of what he said because it was like just great stuff. Uh,
Nice.
and I remember some of what I read. The other thing that was really impactful was, I would say, was I had three jobs on campus because I didn't have money. I think doing that really, and I'd always worked, was just instilling in me that I could just do anything. I'd have lots of work, lots of schoolwork, lots of things to do, and I'd look at my little like written day planner. I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this day, and then I would, and I think it really kind of increased my confidence.
You just made me have like a flashback to those day planners with that snapped over. What are they called? I remember those two. Like, I don't
I don't
even know
know.
if
I
they
had a pocket
exist
day
anymore.
planner.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't even know if they don't exist anymore. People use their computers.
no.
But yeah, we had day planner. You'd write it all out. Yeah, I remember. Wow. Blast from the past. So let's fast forward a bit. You go from marketing to serving as an EMT in New York City, saving lives. That's not your typical LinkedIn career path. Tell us more about the transition and how it shaped your view of humanity.
So when I was in the 70s, I would watch this TV show called Emergency, and it was about these two paramedics in California. And I just thought it was the coolest thing. And I wanted to do that. And in my neighborhood in Brooklyn, we had a volunteer ambulance corps. So when I was 16, I joined. I was a dispatcher. And then when I turned 17, I was able to 17, I could start riding the ambulance. And then I got my I got my EMT at 18. And I just I enjoyed serving. I always liked being in service. And it was yeah, it was fun. I mean, it was a lot of waiting around.
Hmm.
But I liked doing that work, and I liked the skill of understanding like emergency medicine and how our body works and how to help people. It really opened me up to other cultures in my community. You know, I didn't know my neighbors as well until I did that. Because I'd go into their homes, I'd see them at
Yeah.
their worst, and you'd see how people live, and that was a really good experience. But it wasn't something I planned on doing forever. I did it until I was maybe in my early 20s, and then I moved on.
Yeah. Imagine that was pretty, there was pretty interesting moments, but also traumatic moments too, seeing things.
Yeah, some very traumatic moments. And I think
Yeah.
that's probably where I kind of started. And I think growing up in Brooklyn, I had a pretty big mask, big shield.
Yeah.
You know, we were talking early before the show about vulnerability, and
Yeah.
I think definitely does not make you vulnerable working on an ambulance because it is traumatic, and there wasn't really a way to process some of the things that you'd see or experience.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So let's get into the work you're doing now, because honestly,
Yeah.
it's fascinating. You're training over 60,000 people. You run I love the name Electric Cow, and you're helping organizations tackle unconscious bias, which is so needed today with research and results. What drew you to this work?
That's a great question. I had a client, a federal agency, the U.S. Forest Service. I was doing a consulting project where I was developing their national talent acquisition strategy and their diversity hiring strategy. It was a year-long project to write this big kind of playbook. And during it, the head of HR for the Forest Service asked me to build a workshop on unconscious bias. And at that point, I had spent a couple of decades uh, in and leading experiential workshops, which I'll talk about in a second. So I built the workshop, I tested it out a few times, and then I brought it to Albuquerque, and they loved it. And that was I was working, so they paid for it. But then I probably did it 30 or 40 times, just as kind of going to conferences and doing it for free. It wasn't my work. But then in the beginning of 2020, my actually a professor from Hartford, Dr. Sandra Morgan, and we had kept in touch, and she had suggested I submit that workshop to a conference in Philadelphia to get feedback. So I did, and it got accepted, but I'd also applied to graduate school for
Wow.
a master's in organizational development. And I there was a conflict. So I was in both things were going to happen, and I couldn't go to the conference. My teacher's like, look, you can't go to the conference, come to class, because it was going to be at the same time. So we did that, but then the pandemic came,
Hmm.
and the university was gonna have it at the school, this workshop at the school, but because of the pandemic, we did it on Zoom. And in April of 2020, I had 140 people from around the world in this Zoom room, and
Wow.
we did the workshop, and it just took off, and then from that moment on, that's what I was doing. But really, it was in the 90s where I got that I really wanted to train people. But I never, and this is one of one of my regrets is that I did not focus my career as an educator. My dad was an educator. I never
Okay.
thought being an educator was my thing,
Yep.
but it's totally my thing. And I'd wish I had done that earlier. I'd had opportunities. Um, and that's a regret that, there's nothing I can do about it, but that's what I do now. And
Yeah.
I educate people.
Well, you pivoted and got to where you belong, right? So that's a good thing.
I think
Um,
so, finally, but I'm 60.
that's okay. That's okay.
I did it I've been now 5 or 6 years doing this full time.
I love that. Talking about experiential learning, having myself worked in the post-secondary schools, experiential learning, co-op, internships. such a key thing that young people have to take advantage of today. But tell our listeners, especially our students and new grads, what that means to you and why it's so important for more than effective just sitting in a classroom lecture or checking a compliance box. What's your view on experiential learning?
Yeah, so it's very simply said, it's the difference between telling somebody how to ride a bike and riding a bike.
A good
Right?
good
You learn to
analogy.
ride a bike by doing it. And most of the things that we do, you learn by doing it. And so experiential learning is the way babies learn. Babies learn experientially. No, there's no classes in walking or talking or crawling, right? They practice, they fall down. In fact, a lot of experiential learning came out of watching babies and how they learn. So the idea, let's just say it's about communication. You want to learn how to communicate. Well, then practice with someone communicating in kind of a safe space, and then learn how to communicate in a particular way, and then you can take that out into the world. So that's the idea of experiential learning. You also remember it, right? You remember how to ride a bike. You remember things that you didn't have to read about.
Right.
We have body memory, muscle memory, and that's how we mostly function, right? Language came later as Homo sapiens than did experiences.
Very good point. Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. Great response there. So, as you know, our listeners are mostly students, recent grads, early in career, pros trying to figure out how to lead with purpose. What's one lesson about leadership or career growth you wish someone told you when you were just starting out?
Well, I think, I wished I really understood the uh, the reality of economics and being a human being. Like
Mm,
I did not invest money uh, when I should have. And in simple ways, like having a 401k or having a Roth IRA, I think, and I think it is the biggest thing I wish I would have been told was that as soon as I could have opened up like a Roth IRA. I mean, they like whatever, some kind of like retirement account where I'm just putting some money in, and then later on in life, I have that as either something to rely on for my retirement or to help me make career decisions.
yeah,
And that is the biggest thing. Money is one of the biggest things that keeps people from doing what it is they really want to do. And if you can put away some money into something that's going to grow for you, honestly, I know it's like, it sounds like maybe something a dad would say,
no,
but
it's key.
it is incredibly key. Everyone has to do it. And if you look at like simple numbers, if you put $7,000 a year in for 20 or 30 years, you'd be a millionaire.
Hmm.
If you look at the S&P in the United States, it's not like impossible to be wealthy. It just takes that very small here. There are some things you can do big moves, right? But most of the things that you can do to really have an impact are little moves.
Hmm.
Like you brush your teeth twice a day. You don't brush it like all day for 24 hours to not have cavities.
Right.
Same thing with your career. If you want to have a career where you can live, and most of us work because we want to be expressed, but we also need to earn money in the culture that we live in. That would have been number one thing. Number one and number two things. And then the idea of the idea of doing what you love, which I always found to be like uh, like a higher ideal.
Hmm.
There are times when you're going to do what you need to do to live, and you need to figure out how to like deal with it and love it. And then there may be times when you do what you really feel you love. But even in the job that I love, like I love doing it, there are a lot of things I have to do that I do not love.
Yep.
And that's just the reality. And I've got to like, okay, I'm going to do all these things. And it's not like there's easy street.
Yeah. Well, especially being an entrepreneur, it's all on you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's the world is harder than I think it gets made out to. Oh, I got that it was hard. I feel for the young people who I think they don't they aren't it's not clearly explained to them how hard things are going to be.
Hmm.
And hard not like is impossible, but hard is in, working some plan that's going to get you to where you want to go.
Hmm. Yeah. No, key point. It's interesting because I've had students on this podcast and I've asked them what would you share with other students about what you wish you learned. They all go to budgeting and finances because when you go off to college, university, you have a credit card and you're like, and this is going to date us, but my dad was balancing my checkbook right up until I left for school. So I didn't even know
Wow.
what money was, right? Like it was like,
Yeah.
yeah. So your point is really well taken because it's such an important aspect of not just wellness and health when it comes to other things, but financial wellness and knowing what to do and how to do it is so key. And I thank you for sharing that because it you, you need to take time to figure that out.
Yeah, everyone needs to have a financial plan. Like, and the financial plan should be you make money, and some of your money you put into something that's invested in the stock market or something like that, where you don't touch it. It isn't
Right.
money for now, it's money for like much, much later, like when you're in your 50s or 60s or beyond. Because there will come a point in time where either you don't want to work or you can't work or the work that you do isn't doesn't exist anymore. I mean, young people now, they're going to be doing things that didn't exist as jobs. That ain't changing. So in 20 years, the jobs they have now might not exist,
That's right.
and that is a reality. That's
Absolutely.
absolutely a reality. That is not like, oh, some old guy saying this. You need to have money to live in this society, and you got to
Absolutely.
figure out a way to make sure that you've taken care of yourself.
So I want to ask you another question. And as I mentioned, we have young listeners and we also have people that are later in career pivoting or trying a new chapter or, new chapter in life and maybe going off and being an entrepreneur or a life coach or other things. You've worn a lot of different hats, executive producer of a radio show, researcher, author, speaker. What would you say to someone who feels they might be behind or unsure of that next step?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that the younger you are, the more time you have to figure out like what really matters to you.
Hmm.
And it's not always easy. And when I was 55, 54, I started a master's in organizational development and knowledge management. And it was very hard the first semester learning how to write academically. But then I really got into it. And every class I took, I used in my business. And I got that master's at the end of 2022. And I realized I really love learning. I really love like graduate school. And in the like after the first year, I was talking to another student and I realized I didn't know what my grades were. And they said, "Oh, well, they're," because I'm thinking like they would get mailed to me like 40 years ago, right? So I didn't know my grades. So I went online and I see that I got all these A pluses. And I ended up getting
Congrats.
inducted, yeah, into an honor society. And I was not a good student. So this was like really healing for my like student cred.
Oh yeah.
Um, so then I started the master's in 2023 in neuroscience because it's like it's the undercurrent of what I teach. I teach unconscious bias. I teach psychological safety. I teach these things that fundamentally have to do with how our brain works. And so that's what I've been doing for the last couple of years, and I'm going to continue, getting my master's and doing research. And the more I learn about the brain, the more fascinated I am, and the more every things make more sense than I thought.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. So let's talk the Lorne Epstein show. You had an
Oh yeah,
all-star lineup, Congressman Jamie Raskin,
that was great.
SHRM's Johnny Taylor, author Daniel Pink, love him more. Um, what was it like having those conversations and what did you learn about the workplace from them?
So I'm just going to add, like Sir
Sure.
Sir Bob Geldof. I interviewed him in Paris.
Oh, wow.
That was amazing, along with Jacques Cousteau's uh, granddaughter.
What?
Like those five people that you mentioned, the three and two, those were like the some of the best shows I ever did. And I would say, it's a bell curve. Like those were all the way to the right, but then there were some that
Yeah.
were way to the left, where I would talk to somebody like you are, right? You'd had this conversation with me, and you're like, oh, this is gonna be a great show. And then they'd come on my show and they wouldn't say anything. And it'd be like pulling teeth. So it was a side gig. I was working full time, and every one Saturday a month, me and the guy who was my engineer, Afote, would meet at a radio station here, and we would record five shows, and then they would play it once a week for an hour. It was an hour show on air on FM here in Arlington, and it was good. I tried to make it good, and I turned it into a little bit of a business for a while, but then the pandemic came, and I learned a lot. I had
Yeah,
a good time. And it's like you should have side gigs like that to like, test things out and see what you like and, do things that are outside of your comfort zone.
absolutely. Absolutely. What a cool panel of people you've had. That's so awesome.
Yeah, Johnny Taylor, I had him on the show with this woman who, when she was working for a senator, was sexually harassed. She
Hmm.
goes off, gets her Harvard law degree, and then comes back and starts changing the rules in the House about, sexual harassment.
Yeah.
And we had this great discussion and we talked about there's a real couple, right? So it's a law firm, and there's the woman who works at the law firm, and then there's the man who's like a law student. And the man law student is looking for a summer internship. So he's interviews with this woman, gets the job, and he's working for her. And he kept asking her out on dates. And she kept saying no, right? And finally she said yes, but it turns out that is like Barack and Michelle Obama. Like that
What?
was their courting story, right? Like
Yeah,
he
yeah,
worked for her and he's like, come on, let's go out, come on. And so, that whole thing has changed. And it
yeah.
was interesting to see some companies have policies where you can ask somebody out, but once. And if they say no, then you can't ask them again,
Hmm.
right? Which is kind of an interesting thing, right? So if you're getting asked out by a lot of people at work, you have like this bank of people you could go back to. It's just interesting dating dynamic when in our time, a lot of people met at work, got married at
Oh
work,
yeah,
created families at
absolutely.
work. So
Absolutely.
that was an interesting show.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where I mean, you either met him at work, at the gym, or through a friend. Like, what else are you gonna, you
Yeah,
know?
there was no match, there was
There was no
no
online
internet.
dating,
Yeah.
right? Oh my God. Now, I want to talk a little bit. Now, you're deep into neuroscience and organizational development back in school while also teaching others. What's one insight about the brain that has totally changes how people lead or hire?
Yeah. So really important. The brain defaults to speed over accuracy in decision making.
Mm,
Um, and that default can really sabotage us, right? We tend to make decisions quickly. And the thing to know about the brain is that we are energy conservers. The brain that we have came to us 300,000 years ago. We're Homo sapiens. We're not, we're like version 30
yeah.
of bipods, right? And we are a version that has a brain that was developed 300,000 years ago when the world was dangerous. So most of our brain and our nervous system, which is not just the brain, is designed to react to fear and an absence of food, an absence of resources. So all those things are still with us. And even though the world isn't dangerous, like I'm going to get eaten when I leave my house, we have the same physiological responses
Yeah.
as if a lion was chasing me if I feel threatened at work, or if I feel like I don't belong, or if I don't feel loved, or if I feel like I'm going to lose my job. Any of those things trigger those same fear responses, and we have them way more than our body was designed. So that to me is like one of the biggest like learnings about this is something that we all have, and we need to
Interesting.
take care of ourselves, and we need to take care of each other. Like
Yeah, we
that
need more
constant
kindness,
stimulation, that's not good.
more kindness too, because it's
Yeah, more kindness, exactly. More listening,
more listening. Yeah,
more empathy.
absolutely. Absolutely. You don't know what people are dealing with. Like they might have a smile on their face, but there's a lot going on there. Um,
Yeah, and
so
we tend to trigger each other, because when something was traumatic as a kid, we remember that, and a lot of things can trigger it.
oh,
Like, oh, my
absolutely.
boss came in, went to her desk, didn't say hello. She hates me,
Right.
right? We make that kind of stuff up, and that's something that's real, and it won't go away, but how do we relate to it?
Yeah.
So it might be like knocking on your boss's door and saying, "Hey, is everything okay?" Or having a conversation with like, "Hey, when you come in, do you mind saying hello? This way I know that like I exist." Yeah.
No, it's good. Good points. Because some people get in their zone and don't even think. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's totally. Well, I can't believe we're getting close to the end here. I just want to thank you so much for being here and sharing so openly. Your journey is such a powerful reminder that who we are matters just as much as what we do. And that creating workspaces where people feel safe, seen, and supported just isn't good for business. It's the right thing to do. I really thank you. It's been a pleasure catching up with you and sharing some of your insights with the audience. And I'm so happy you made it on the show today.
Brian, you're an amazing interviewer. This went by so fast, and I have one question for you. What is your favorite food in Canada?
My favorite food in Canada.
The yummiest.
I guess it'd have to be poutine because that's such a
Ah,
common,
poutine.
right?
Tell everyone what poutine is because
Yeah, poutine, right? It's cheese curds, French fries, or potato fries, and gravy.
yummy.
And yeah, it's really good. I mean, I used to go to, back in the day, I would go to diners and get gravy on my fries with cheese, but the poutine here is a very, very big thing for sure. So
Awesome.
thank you for asking.
Yeah. Thank you, Brian. And now
I,
everyone knows your favorite food. So if you see Brian, get him a poutine.
that's right. Get a poutine, we'll be off to the races, as they say. But thanks again. It was such a cool pleasure reconnecting, catching up with you, and I really appreciate you being here today.
Same, you're
Much
a great
appreciated.
interviewer.
Thank you so much. To our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, you can catch more episodes and inspiring stories at coffeewithconvery.com. You can also follow us on Instagram for behind the scenes content and updates. Until next time, remember success isn't always about climbing the corporate ladder. Sometimes it's about building your own jungle gym.